second grade, and welcome to today's math lesson, time to 5-minute intervals. So we've been working on time, telling it to the hour, the half hour, and then to quarters. Now we're going to break it up into even smaller bits, which are 5-minute increments. We're going to dive into that, but first let's warm up our brain with the problem of the day, which brings us back to coins. It's a little review here. And because it's a writing problem, a word problem, not a writing problem, we're going to get our tool out so we can underline or highlight that important information. Lupita has a jar of pennies, nickels, and dimes. She takes out 6 dimes, 1 nickel, and 2 pennies. What is the value, that's our question, so I'm going to circle it, of the coins she takes out of the jar? So if we want to find the value, we want to know the amount. How many cents does she have? We don't want to know how many coins altogether. We want to know the amount. I know that dimes are 10 cents each. I know that nickels are 5 cents each, and pennies are 1 cent each. So if she has 6 dimes, I'm going to draw it out over here. She has 6 of them, 4, 5, 6, and each one is 10. So I'm going to draw that in there. There are lots of different ways of doing this strategy. This is the one that makes sense for me. Then she has 1 nickel, which is 5, and 2 pennies. Oh, pennies are not worth 2 cents. That's why it's important to be careful. Don't go too fast. So each penny is 1 cent. All right, so now we can add it all up. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 65, 66, 67, which means she has 67 cents in her jar. Looks like there is a second question for us. What will the value of the coins be if she takes out another dime? Well, we just have to add another dime to our picture over here, which if we do that, it should look like this. Another 10. And we're going to put another 10, and we'll start over with our counting. Or we can just add 10 to 67, and that would be 77. But let's start from the beginning. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 75, 76, 77. So that gives us our total of 77 cents. Now let's do our Common Core quick check. There are 3 quick questions here. The first one says, tell what time is shown. Write the time. Well, when we're telling time, I like to start with that hour hand. And remember, if it's pointing somewhere in between 2 numbers, it's going from the smaller number to the bigger number. It's not quite the bigger number yet. So you're going to say it is 8 o'clock. And let's find out those minutes. We know if we split it into quarters, when it's on the 3, that is 15 minutes. Or as we're going to do today, you can count by 5s. 5, 10, 15. So it is 8:15. If we look at this one here, we're going to look at the hour hand. And this one is tricky because that line looks like it's almost exactly on the 7. However, it is not. If you look closely, it's actually still between the 6 and the 7, and it's close to the 7 because that minute hand is really close to becoming the next hour. But because it's not there yet, we're going to go with the hour before. So that means it's 6 o'clock. And if we're looking at the minute hand and we split it into quarters again, we know it's 0, 15, 30, and 45. And we know that we are at 45 minutes. It is 6:45. One more warm-up for us here. When the time is 9:15, where is the minute hand on an analog clock? Our analog clock is the one that looks like this with a minute hand and an hour hand. And we have 12, 3, 6, 9 at our quarter spots. When it is 9:15, where is the minute hand pointing? Well, I know when it's at the 12, that means it's 0. When it's at the 3, it's 15. At the 6, it's 30. And at the 9:45, which means it's pointing at the 3 to show that it is 9:15. It says skip count by fives starting from 40. Then draw hands on the analog clocks to represent 6 hours and the given number of minutes for each number. That's a lot of information. So let's just start with skip counting by 5 starting at 40. It's good to have that skill and to practice skip counting, especially by fives. So we have 40, 45, 50, 55. So these are our minutes. It wants 6 hours. So on our clock, well, for this one, I'm going to put our small hand between the 6 and the 7 to be realistic, because when you're later in the clock, so after 30 minutes, which it is here because it's 40, 45, 50, 55 minutes, it's almost into the next hour. So it's more realistic to have that hour hand between the 6 and the 7 instead of directly on the 6. So it's 6:40, which we're going to count by fives on the clock to find where 40 is. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, which lands us right on the 8. So my minute hand is going to go right on the 8 there. And that connects here. The next one is 6:45. Same thing with a small hand between the 6 and the 7. And 45 will just be another skip count 5 up 1. Because 8 was 40, we keep going. 45. So our minute hand goes right on the 9. Next we have 50 minutes. Our hour hand goes between the 6 and the 7 the best I can here. And like I did before, we know that 8 is 40. There's no point going all the way back to the beginning when we have a marker. 40, 45, 50. My minute hand goes right there to the 10. If you noticed, you see the clock hand moving in what we call a clockwise direction. The hand moves in a circle, and it's always moving in the same direction. So this hand is 55 minutes, which you probably already know by now. We put the hour between the 6 and the 7, and the minute hand goes right on the 11. It follows our pattern. 40, 45, 50, 55. Now that we see what time change looks like on the clock when we're counting by fives, let's try that with a word problem. When we look at a word problem, it'll help us take the skill and problem solve with it. So let's see what it has to say. Jolene runs a lap every 5 minutes. Oh, there's important. She starts running at 9:10. If she runs 5 laps, at what time will Jolene finish? Draw the hands on the clock to represent the time she finishes. So we're going to actually use this clock as a tool. And then I will write in a darker color what time it ends on. She starts at 9:10. So our hour is on the 9. And let's count to 10, 5, 10. Our minute hand's on the 2. She is going to run 5 laps. And we know that each lap takes 5 minutes. So we're going to jump to the bigger numbers on the clock because that chunk is going to represent 5 minutes. If you look at these tiny marks, those represent 1. You could count by ones, but it's easier to tell time if you're skip counting by fives. So let's put those 5 jumps in. 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps, 5 laps. And each one of those is 5 minutes. So I'm going to start from the top. It'll be easier to count my time intervals. She starts at 9:10, 5:10, and then she does 5 more laps. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So she ends at 35. So we're going to get our pen back here. And we're going to show that final time. She started at 9:10. And now she's going to finish at 9:35. Jolene finishes running laps at 9:35. It takes some practice, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to tell the time without even really thinking about it. Now we have this page in your packet. What you're going to do is you're going to skip count by fives around the clock. And then at the end, we're going to draw the minute hand where it leaves off and write the time down in the digital clock. We know that 12 is our starting point, so that starts at 0. And as we go around, one jump, we'd have 5. So 1 is the same as 5. 2, 10, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Looks like we landed on 40 minutes, and it's on that 8. So our minute hand goes right to the 8. Let's see what hour it is. Our hour hand is between the 5 and the 6, which means it's coming from the 5, going to 6, but it's not 6 yet. So it is 5:40. It takes 5 minutes for the minute hand to move to the next number. You can skip count by 5s to tell time. This clock shows 40 minutes after 9 o'clock. Write the time another way. So if we write it another way here in the digital clock, it becomes 9:40. You can say it's 40 minutes after 9, or you could say 9:40. All right, now we're going to do some practice problems. I'll help you get started with the first 3 here, and I can't wait to see all the good work that you do. They even shade in the amount that has happened on the clock to help you know when to start and stop. So starting here, we're going to look at our hour. It's between the 12 and the 1. We know the clock starts on 12, so it's coming from the 12 on its way to 1. So our hour is 12. If it would like to write for me today, our hour is 12. And our minutes, let's count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20. It is 12, 20. I'm going to write that again down here so it's neater. Then we have this clock. Looks like it's almost to the next hour. It's between 3 and 4. It's not 4 yet. It has 5 minutes left. So our hour is 3. And we're going to count by 10s all the way to the 11 where our minute hand is. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So that is 3:55. On our last one here, our hour hand is sitting between 4 and 5. It is not 5 yet, so we say it is 4. And let's count by 5s all the way to that 5 hand. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So it is 4:25. All right. I believe in you guys. I hope you have a wonderful time telling time, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.